if you're anything like the people who tune into this deep dive, you have this insatiable curiosity. You're always looking for that quickest, most efficient path to gain genuinely valuable knowledge.
Right. Not just the headlines.
Exactly. Not the surface stuff, but the deep foundational insights that really explain why the world is changing around us.
Yeah, the mechanics of it.
Well, today we're talking about a trend that is, I mean, it's absolutely enormous, artificial intelligence.
We can't avoid it.
You really can't.
Yeah.
But we are intentionally setting aside the flashy consumer chatbots and the doom and gloom scenarios.
Thank goodness.
Instead, we're focusing on how AI is transforming core industries in ways that are often incredibly subtle, purely operational, and profoundly effective.
The behind-the-scenes stuff.
We're looking behind the curtain at operational excellence because that is where the real competitive advantage is forged. That's where the real revolutions happen.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's unpack this.
So the source material we've curated for this deep dive gives us this incredibly specific and really intriguing glimpse into exactly that kind of quiet revolution.
Quiet is the key word there.
It is. We are analyzing some massive public-facing product launch. We're looking at a detailed tactical integration deep within these really complex, high-volume retail workflows.
Okay, so where are we focusing?
Our focus is on the global retail giant, Zara.
Right.
Specifically, their strategic adoption of generative AI, or Gen AI. And the goal here is achieving immediate, tangible, and, highly scalable improvement.
What area?
In efficiency and adaptability. I mean, look, Zara is a master of logistics. That's their whole brand.
Sure.
And now they're applying that same mindset, that computational power, to solve what are essentially logistics problems.
So the mission for us today, and for you listening,
the mission is to extract the core insights about how Gen AI is being deployed in a surprisingly fundamental area.
Visual merchandising.
Visual merchandising. That's not what most people think of with AI in retail. Not at all. It's often the forgotten stepchild of retail tech. We think of, personalization engines or these massive global supply chain optimization systems.
Sure, the big ticket items.
But here, it's about the very images that populate the website, the images that actually sell the products. It's the visual supply chain.
The visual supply chain. I like that framing.
Yeah, so this deep dive, it's purely focused on the mechanics of operational leverage. We're looking for those surprising aha moments that reveal how this highly sophisticated tech is solving surprisingly high-volume, repetitive problems.
The kind of friction that just eats away at margins.
Exactly. The stuff that eats margins and slows down your time to market.
Yeah.
That's the real enemy in fast fashion.
That distinction is so crucial for understanding the strategy here. Because when we talk about AI and, high fashion or fast fashion, my mind usually jumps to algorithmic trend forecasting.
Predicting the next big thing.
Right. Predicting which jacket hemline will be hot next season, or maybe hyper-personalized digital feeds. But the source material shows us Zara is quietly revolutionizing its operations by targeting something much more functional, much more plumbing-focused.
Plumbing is a good word for it. It's the infrastructure.
It's product imagery enhancement.
That's it.
And this isn't about redesigning the clothes or predicting what's next. It's about making the process of showing the existing clothes faster, infinitely more flexible, and, dramatically cheaper at scale. It addresses what the source accurately calls one of the more overlooked aspects of retail technology, visual merchandising.
Which is so strange when you think about it.
How so?
Well, for a digital-first retailer like Zara, the visual merchandising is the entire storefront.
That's a great point. There's no window display to walk past.
Exactly. The product image, how it's styled, and how quickly you can iterate on that image. That is the entire consumer experience.
Okay, so let's just, put some real-world context on this.
Yeah.
Think about the complexity before Gen AI. If Zara had a new skirt that came in, say, 5 colors and 3 distinct fabric cuts like a pleated version, a pencil version, and an A-line.
Okay, a lot of variation.
A lot. And then they needed to show 5 different styling options for each one of those, tucked in, belted with a blazer, whatever.
The number just explodes.
It balloons into 75 distinct styling setups. In a traditional setting, that meant 75 separate logistical headaches.
Oh, at least.
You're ensuring the right samples are available, you're coordinating models, lighting, camera setups. You're tracking hundreds of hours of manual retouching.
It's a massive, massive undertaking for every single product launch.
And that entire logistical chain, that friction, is precisely what they're targeting to eliminate.
Exactly. And the mechanism they're using is the core innovation here. It shows immense strategic restraint and focus.
What is the mechanism?
So Zara is leveraging AI to generate fresh images of models wearing outfits. Now that sounds straightforward.
It does. It sounds like something we've seen before.
But the crucial defining detail from the source is that these new images are entirely derived from existing photo shoots.
Okay, so they aren't just typing model wearing a blue skirt into a prompt.
Not at all. This is not about letting the AI dream up a completely new fake model in a fake setting from scratch. This is all about asset multiplication.
Asset multiplication. Unpack that for us.
It means a model might be photographed once, a single high-fidelity source shot in a studio wearing a specific foundational garment.
Okay.
Then, instead of requiring that model to come back for every single lighting variation or every accessory swap or every minor pose shift needed for a different global market.
Which would be a logistical nightmare.
A total nightmare. Instead, the Gen AI engine takes that original visual data and it synthesizes entirely new, high-quality, photorealistic images.
So it's like they're remixing the original photo.
It's more than remixing. It effectively transforms the model's single-captured performance into a dynamic digital asset.
A dynamic digital asset.
Yeah, you can think of it like creating a high-fidelity digital puppet or a visual avatar that's based on that one single high-resolution source image.
So this is how they maximize the utility of the assets they've already captured.
That's the core of it. They paid the considerable fixed costs up front. The model's time, the photographer, the studio rental, the stylist, all of that is a sunk cost.
Right.
And now they can multiply the strategic value of that initial investment many, many times over without ever scheduling or paying for another physical session.
That concept asset multiplication, that really feels like the core efficiency loop being created here.
It is.
It means every single pixel of every existing costly image is suddenly, it's a reusable dynamic component. It's not a finished, static, one-time use asset anymore.
Precisely.
But this brings up a huge question, one that, every listener focused on creative industry is going to ask immediately.
I don't know where you're going with this.
How do they stop this from veering into the uncanny valley? How do they stop it from cheapening the brand?
That is absolutely the right question to ask. And the source addresses it by stressing the continued maintenance of the human touch?
The human touch. So it's not a fully automated pipeline?
Not at all. This
Yeah.
is not some AI free-for-all designed to just eliminate human input altogether. It's a hybrid workflow.
Okay. So where does the human fit in?
The source explicitly details that human models are still indispensable in the initial foundational stages of creation.
The very first step.
The very first step. And this is a critical, practical, and philosophical constraint. If you consider the state-of-the-art in generative visual models today, especially in high-stakes fields like fashion,
Right.
they still rely so heavily on exceptional real-world data input to generate convincing results.
So garbage in, garbage out.
It's the ultimate garbage in, garbage out scenario. If that initial photo shoot captures the subtle intricacies of the fabric's drape, the texture of tweed, the sheen of silk, the way cotton
Oh,
wrinkled,
details that make it feel real.
and the model's authentic dynamic expression, if that's captured perfectly, the AI has incredibly rich data to work with.
And that's the only thing that allows it to create believable variations.
It's the only thing that allows it to synthesize believable variations that avoid that uncanny valley where things just look subtly wrong or fake.
And on the clip side,
Conversely, if the initial input is poor, the Gen AI output will be equally poor. Or worse, it could be aesthetically damaging to the brand.
so the human is responsible for setting the truth,
Yeah.
or maybe the aesthetic boundary of the visual output.
That's a perfect way to put it.
And the AI is simply the machine that multiplies the visual logistics within that boundary.
Yes, exactly.
This means that initial creative spark, the aesthetic decision about what should even be photographed in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
The staging, the choice of background, the strategic garment combination, the lighting, all of that remains fundamentally human.
It has.
So it showcases AI as a powerful enhancement tool, but it's strategically limited. It's not a replacement for fundamental human creativity.
Precisely. I mean, the fashion industry, it runs on taste, it runs on cultural resonance, on styling that signals belonging or aspiration.
Things a machine can't really grasp.
Not yet, anyway. Those elements are defined by highly trained human experts, stylists, creative directors, photographers. The AI's job is purely to efficiently disseminate and iterate upon those human-led choices.
At a scale and speed that was previously impossible.
Logistically impossible. It is the operational multiplier, not the originator of the style. The human defines the visual quality ceiling. The machine just ensures they hit that time millions of times without any more human labor.
Okay, let's transition now. Let's get into the heavy-hitting area, the operational implications, because this is where the savings and the competitive advantages really start to stack up.
They stack up exponentially.
Especially for a retailer operating with Zara's high-volume, low-margin model.
Absolutely. I mean, Zara's entire business model is built on one thing: speed.
Right. Which means their use of AI is explicitly aimed at ruthlessly optimizing their workflow. In the fast fashion world, optimization isn't just a competitive advantage.
It's survival.
It's survival. The cycle is notoriously fast. It's defined by micro-seasons and these rapid trend shifts that demand instant responsiveness across the entire organization,
For the factory floor.
all the way through to the digital catalog. And what's fascinating here is how this automation addresses the sheer scale of the retail challenge.
What do you mean by scale?
Imagine you have thousands of sex stock keeping units across dozens of global markets.
Okay.
Each of those markets has slightly different cultural norms, different color preferences, different regional climate considerations.
So you can't just use the same image everywhere.
You can't. If you need to present those items differently, say adding a scarf for the Nordic market presentation but showing the bare dress in the Mediterranean market, the manual coordination required becomes, well, astronomical.
And any delay in getting that regionally appropriate, perfectly styled imagery onto the website or into the app translates directly into lost sales and missed windows of opportunity.
So before Gen AI, if Zara decided, based on early market data, that a specific silk blouse needed to be shown tucked into a high-waisted pant, a totally new styling approach, they had an enormous logistical hurdle. They basically had two really bad options.
Right. What were they?
Either pull the items back for a costly, disruptive last-minute reshoot,
Which kills your timeline.
or rely on extensive, costly, and often visually inferior manual digital manipulation using traditional photo editing software.
So slow and expensive, or slow, expensive, and it looks bad.
Exactly. So the immediate result of this Gen AI adoption is a significant move to automate the variance creation part of the image process. And that streamlines the imagery process to an extent that was never before possible. Let's just dedicate a moment to comparing the workflows.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Because understanding the friction points they're eliminating really reveals the true power of this implementation.
Okay, so the old way.
The old, fully manual process.
Yeah.
Streamlining meant endless meetings and dependencies. You'd start with product design, then sampling, then coordinating.
Logistics.
Booking the studio months in advance, ensuring the exact garment samples, often just one or two per style, arrive from the factory to the photo shoot location precisely on time.
A huge point of failure right there.
A huge one. Then you're scheduling the model, the photographer, the stylist, the hair and makeup team for a specific 4-hour slot.
So many moving parts.
They shoot hundreds of frames, then wait for raw processing, send those files to a team of retouchers who manually adjust every stray hair, every highlight, every shadow.
Labor-intensive.
Extremely. And then this was followed by multiple rounds of stakeholder approval design team, marketing team, regional managers.
Everyone has to sign off.
And then finally, the image could be published. That whole process, end to end, could easily take 2 to 4 weeks.
And critically, if a regional manager in Tokyo decided they needed the model to wear a belt with that specific outfit,
Right.
and that shot just hadn't been captured during the initial session,
You're out of luck.
the whole pipeline had to potentially restart for that one single variation.
A nightmare.
So the new Gen AI enhanced process, it just short-circuits this entire logistical nightmare.
Ow.
It decouples the creation of variation from the constraint of physical resources.
Okay, what does that mean in practice?
They capture the foundational truth of the garment one time in a highly controlled environment, creating that high-fidelity digital master asset we talked about.
Right, the core photo.
And then the AI handles the variations, changing the accessories, shifting the model's weight, adjusting the perceived lighting for a sunset feel versus a midday feel, or swapping out the background.
Oh, digitally.
All digitally, instantly, and on demand. And that frees up those expensive human resources and physical logistics budgets for other high-value creative tasks.
It's a total replatforming of the visual supply chain.
That's a great way to put it.
And that operational efficiency, that directly translates into the financial side of the equation.
It has to.
The source suggests this move could potentially reduce costs, but I mean, when we talk about a company operating at Zara's scale, even a minor reduction in the cost per image asset has to translate into massive transformative savings globally.
Let's analyze the cost implication in some granular detail because this is where that operational leverage becomes so clear.
Okay.
What are the major variable costs associated with traditional visual merchandising?
It's not just the photographer's fee.
It goes so far beyond that. It includes the travel and accommodation logistics for flying top-tier models, hair and makeup artists, stylists, a large production crew.
To all these desirable locations around the world or to central studio hubs.
Right. It involves renting expensive, specialized studio space and equipment by the day. And crucially, there's the cost of sample inventory management.
Making sure the right physical sample is in the right place at the right time.
And that it hasn't been lost or damaged. And finally, the sheer volume of high-end computational power and, more importantly, human hours required for the manual retouching phase.
Which is paid by the hour.
Exactly.
And that manual retouching phase is often a huge hidden bottleneck.
It is.
To achieve that seamless high-end look, retouchers aren't just adjusting brightness. They're often rebuilding parts of the image, refining textures, eliminating visual imperfections from movement or lighting errors.
It's highly specialized, very expensive labor.
So by generating new high-quality images digitally from existing source content, Zara essentially eliminates the vast majority of those variable costs.
The costs associated with repeated physical photo shoots and manual human manipulation, they neutralize logistical risk almost entirely.
They also reduce their reliance on external scheduling constraints.
Massively. They no longer have to wait for the next open studio slot or the model's availability.
It's all in-house and on demand.
They're moving a large portion of the cost structure from unpredictable, escalating variable costs like logistics and external labor to fixed costs.
The initial investment in the Gen AI system and its ongoing maintenance and development,
Right.
this is textbook operational leverage, which maybe we should clearly define that for the listener.
Good idea.
Operational leverage happens when your fixed costs are high, but your variable costs are low.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, the fixed cost is that single initial photo shoot and the Gen AI software. But once that investment is made,
The magic happens.
the cost to produce the 100th image variation or the 10,000th variation is virtually zero. It leverages that initial creative output exponentially.
Exactly. If Zara can double or even triple the number of high-quality, market-ready images they produce using the same initial input assets, their effective cost per image just plummets.
By 50% or more.
Or more. And this is not just some minor saving. This micro detail, the cost per rendered visual asset, connects directly to the broader financial health and profitability of a global giant.
Especially one operating in a hyper-competitive, high-volume, low-margin market.
They maintain their margins. And in fast fashion, that is the foundational competitive metric.
And that reduction in friction and cost that leads directly into the third major operational benefit.
Yeah.
Speed.
The big one.
The Gen AI system increases the speed at which new imagery can be produced and updated from, weeks or even days down to hours or minutes.
It's a step change.
We've established that speed is essential in this industry. But let's look at the strategic outcomes of that speed. The source mentions faster turnaround times for seasonal collections.
Right.
Consider the typical product lifecycle compression. The initial design and physical production cycle is already extremely compressed in fast fashion,
They're famous for it.
which means marketing and visual asset creation become the last mile. They become the largest, most complex bottleneck right before a launch.
So if that bottleneck is digitally removed or just drastically widened, Zara gains this unprecedented competitive agility.
They can launch seasonal collections faster, obviously.
But more importantly, they can pivot within a season almost instantly.
Okay, give us an example of that.
Sure. Imagine they launch a new winter collection globally. Early sales data from Northern Europe shows that a specific leather glove is failing to convert.
Okay.
And they figure out it's because the image shows the model outside in bright sunlight, which just doesn't resonate with the local consumer mindset of deep winter.
Right. It feels wrong for the market.
Before Gen AI, changing the lookbook for Northern Europe would have meant scheduling a new shoot. That would take weeks, and by then the selling window is closing.
You missed your chance.
Now, they can instantly instruct the AI to re-render that glove onto the existing model asset. Change the ambient lighting to, cold, diffused daylight. Maybe add a subtle snow texture to the background.
And update the website.
In under an hour.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me.
Go on.
This rapid production and modification capability, it means the company can create more dynamic presentations of their fashion lines.
Dynamic presentation.
It means they shift from these static, seasonal lookbooks to continuous, real-time market testing and iteration.
So it's no longer fire and forget.
Not at all. They can immediately A/B test 10 different visual presentations of the exact same product simultaneously across different user segments.
Different poses, different lighting.
Different perceived lighting, different background environments, even different accessories that a local market might prefer.
And then immediately track which visual input drives the highest conversion rate.
Measured in clicks or additions to cart. This link between production speed and continuous market competitiveness is absolutely foundational to modern retail success.
It is.
They're transforming visual merchandising from a static, expensive artistic endeavor into a continuous data-driven optimization loop.
Absolutely. And moving beyond the immediate Zara case, their methodology truly illustrates a broader trend in retail.
So this isn't just a one-off.
Far from it. This is not an isolated experiment. It's a demonstration of a scalable operational model that other retailers,
From luxury brands
needing perfect quality control to department stores managing these enormous catalogs, they must eventually adopt this to compete with this level of operational agility.
So this is the new baseline.
It's becoming the new baseline. This trend is the deep integration of AI into everyday, high-volume operational tasks.
And we're specifically talking about the tasks that are essential, repetitive, resource-intensive, and time-consuming.
The kinds of tasks that, as we said, might not make headlines because they're internal efficiency gains, but they're fundamentally important to the company's ability to survive and thrive.
And as we've detailed, these integrations significantly enhance efficiency and adaptability.
Right. Efficiency is the ability to do more things cheaper and faster. But adaptability is the crucial strategic capability.
The ability to respond to change.
The ability to respond to changing market conditions, to test new styling concepts, or to react to unexpected supply chain disruptions with minimal logistical overhead and maximal speed.
The ability to generate tens of thousands of unique visual assets from a small handful of master shots. That feels like the new definition of operational adaptability in retail.
I think it is.
It means they're far less reliant on perfect scheduling, physical logistics, and highly paid individual retouchers.
And much more reliant on scalable computational power.
Which is instantaneous and available 24/7 globally. It hints very strongly at a future where Gen AI for visual asset creation could be a standard tool in the retail toolkit. We touched on the analogy of the spreadsheet before, but let's elaborate on that. Decades ago, complex financial modeling was this highly specialized proprietary task.
You needed mainframes and specific expertise.
Right. Today, the ability to build and manipulate a massive spreadsheet is standard. It's expected. It's accessible on every single laptop.
So what does a standard tool imply in the context of Gen AI asset creation?
Well, that's the question.
First, I think it implies ubiquity, that every major retailer, and certainly any competitor to Zara in the fast fashion space, will need this capability just to stay in the game.
Just to maintain parity with Zara's speed advantage.
Exactly. Second, it implies accessibility, that the underlying technology, whether it's proprietary or licensed, will become affordable enough for mid-sized and specialized retailers too.
So it democratizes high-end visual production.
It will. And third, and maybe most importantly, it implies expectation.
Consumer expectation.
Yes. Consumers will quickly come to expect a constantly refreshed, visually tailored, and error-free shopping experience where products are shown in the most aesthetically pleasing and contextually relevant way for their specific region or taste segment.
So if a consumer sees the same 5 static shots for months, while a competitor is serving up dynamic, tested variations,
the static site will feel instantly antiquated, obsolete.
So what does this all mean for the human professionals involved in this?
It's a fundamental shift.
It seems like the conversation moves entirely away from if AI will be used to how effectively and strategically it can be integrated into existing complex human workflows.
And how to do that without disrupting the core creative engine of the business.
So for the next generation of visual merchandisers, creative directors, even photographers, their value won't be in the execution of tedious variations.
Like manually warping a garment to appear tucked in.
Exactly. Their value will be in mastering the inputs and outputs of the AI system, knowing what creative prompts, what specific stylistic adjustments or what initial high-fidelity images will yield the highest quality and most effective results in the Gen AI engine.
So it's a shift from being a manual laborer to being a strategic conductor of the technology.
A conductor. I like that.
And this refocuses us squarely back onto the core philosophy described in the source material.
Riches.
That AI is enhancing creativity and operational excellence without overshadowing the indispensable human elements of fashion and design.
And this is crucial because fashion is fundamentally an emotional and aspirational business.
You cannot successfully automate taste. You can't automate cultural sensitivity.
Not yet.
So successful adoption relies on defining these crystal clear boundaries between the domains of human judgment and machine execution.
So what stays human?
The human expertise must be respected and protected. The initial styling, the setting of the artistic tone, the complex design decisions, and the final judgment of aesthetic quality, those are protected domains.
And what does the AI handle?
The AI handles the high-volume operational tasks, the rapid generation of endless variations, the resizing for different platform specifications, applying different color filters to test market reception, and integrating new accessories.
But let me press on that point for a second. While the cost savings are clear and they're impressive, is there a quantifiable risk here?
A risk of what?
That relying so heavily on synthesized, computationally generated images could eventually dilute the feeling of authenticity that premium or even aspirational fashion requires.
That's the core strategic tension.
Could this lead to buyer skepticism? Or, worse, an increase in product returns because the physical product doesn't perfectly match the AI-enhanced visual asset?
That is the precise tightrope they have to walk. The source implicitly suggests that Zara is highly aware of this uncanny valley risk.
Okay.
The risk isn't that the image looks blatantly fake. The risk is that the image looks too perfect.
Too perfect.
Or is so easily iterated upon that it loses its perceived artistic value. If a consumer feels they're looking at a hyper-optimized digital phantom rather than a photograph capturing a real garment on a real model, that connection might break.
The emotional connection.
Exactly. This is why the human-led input is so critical. That initial high-fidelity photograph establishes the aesthetic truth. The Gen AI system is then limited by that truth.
So if the model looks slightly bored, or the fabric has a subtle imperfection in the original photo,
An aesthetic decision by the photographer.
the AI has to maintain that subtlety across all the variations.
It must. If the AI over-optimizes or removes too much of the reality, the strategic benefit of speed will be completely outweighed by the operational cost of consumer distrust and high return rates.
So the successful model, as Zara is defining it, is using AI to multiply the impact and the scalability of human creativity.
Yes.
Not to replace the creativity itself. It's leveraged expertise.
That's it.
You know, imagine the initial creative team spends 2 intensive weeks perfecting a photo shoot aesthetic, the lighting, the mood, the styling.
A huge amount of human effort and taste.
And the Gen AI engine takes those 2 weeks of human-driven taste and judgment and executes what would have been 10 years' worth of manual retouching and variation creation.
Instantly.
It's the ultimate force multiplier for creative output.
Yeah.
That symbiosis feels like the model for successful future enterprise AI adoption across virtually every industry that relies on visual communication.
I agree, and that speaks to the final necessary shift in how retail views technology spending.
What's the shift?
This isn't just another marketing automation tool. This is a fundamental restructuring of how visual content is produced and managed.
It's infrastructure.
It's moving the entire company's visual strategy onto a platform that prioritizes instant iteration based on market feedback, rather than relying on a slow, costly physical cycle.
So it changes how budgets are structured.
Completely. Less spending on travel and booking, more spending on high-end data capture and compute time.
This has been a deeply fascinating journey. We started by zooming in on one specific detail, a single product image,
And zoomed way out.
and zoomed out to understand these profound global shifts in operational strategy and asset management. For you, the learner who seeks those foundational insights, the key takeaways are really clear.
Yeah.
Zara's Gen AI implementation is a powerful, real-world example of operational excellence in action. We move beyond the simple concept of generating images
Right.
to understanding profound operational shifts that fundamentally save costs, drastically boost speed, and permanently streamline a high-friction workflow that previously plagued the entire fashion retail sector.
It's a solution to a very old problem.
It is The revolutionary impact started with something as fundamental as the images we see when shopping online.
Mm.
It proves once again that the biggest business revolutions often happen not in the flashy customer interface that makes headlines,
But deep in the plumbing.
deep in the efficiency layers beneath, quietly perfecting the complex process of taking a product from concept to dynamic consumer visualization.
And this ongoing emphasis on visual merchandising, this art and science of presenting a product to maximize its appeal, that leads us to the final provocative question.
Okay.
A question that Zara and all its competitors must now confront. The source material repeatedly stresses this delicate balance between technology and the indispensable human elements of fashion and design.
Right, suggesting that the initial high-quality human input is what gives the imagery its core, resonant effectiveness.
Precisely. So since the ultimate measurable goal of visual merchandising is always to drive specific consumer behavior, to click, to linger, to add to cart, to buy,
The bottom line.
the immediate next challenge for the entire retail industry is how they will quantitatively measure the subtle shifts in consumer response.
The response to what?
The response between a purely Gen AI manipulated image and a traditional, untouched professional photograph.
Will consumers, consciously or unconsciously, respond better to the human touch?
That specific, unreplicable quality of a real photograph, even if the differences are technically imperceptible to the naked eye? Or will the speed and customization offered by Gen AI so precisely match real-time buyer preference that the origin of the image just becomes irrelevant?
So the ultimate strategic challenge.
Is determining if the perceived human touch or authenticity will eventually become a quantifiable metric of conversion.
Forcing companies to find increasingly complex and subtle ways to inject human reality into their automated outputs to maintain that consumer trust.
That is the crucial intersection of technology and psychology for you to keep exploring as you watch this space evolve.
Keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep listening. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.